offshore wind and offshore geothermal and stuff will be actually a lot higher. It's a challenge for us because almost our entire coastline is marine sanctuary park off the Olympic Peninsula, and that's a real challenge.
Just one quick question on that power. Is that a power transmission line that's going from the Queen Charlotte's down to San Francisco?
These are all proposed.
Is that a one-way transmission from Queen Charlotte to Santa Cruz?
No, it's all north to south. So it can go both ways. It's not a unidirectional, but they're doing that because, again, they don't have the resources in California to meet their growth, to meet the amount of renewables they have to purchase. So, 15 acres out, they're wanting to have that line built to access resources off Alaska and British Columbia.
What are the resources up there? Are they hydro or?
Well, the big resources are actually it's both it's run river hydro, wind, and wave.
Wave is tidal?
Tidal's different, but it's mainly wave. The tidal, I can talk about tidal technology, but the wave technology is going to be developed faster just because the technology is coming along a bit faster. The tidal technology, although there's good resource, and I think I've got a slide of what the resource is here on the coast coming up, but the footprint you need, the size of infrastructure you need to generate a little amount of electricity, and the cost of that is probably not commercial on the near-term horizon, I mean the next 20 years. I'll try not to trip on it again.
It's all right.
So here's the wave resource. And this is a gross resource estimate. I mean, actually, this isn't looking at gray whale migration routes, other environmental issues that would prohibit some of this area from being developed. But it's a huge amount, 440 terawatts off the coast, and out of Washington, Oregon, California. Washington has the best wave regimen, but the least amount of infrastructure along our coastline to actually take any generation from the coast. That's why you're seeing a lot of the wave projects going into Oregon, because Oregon's got cities all along its coastline, so they've got infrastructure down there. Here's the tidal slide. So 3.5 terawatts in Puget Sound is a ton of energy. And again, this is just a gross assessment of the amount of tidal energy that's there. It's not taking into account the technology to convert that into electricity or into another field. I'm going to kind of blow through this just to get to this slide. So one of the huge issues we're looking at is we're fairly unique in the Pacific Northwest in that we've got the Columbia Gorge is going to have the most concentrated development of wind energy anywhere in the world. So 4,000 megawatts in about a 21-mile stretch is a lot of wind in a short space. And they used to be concerned about, 2 years ago, their big issue was what they call ramping times, which is they could go from zero production to full production in 30 minutes and have that drop off again to nothing. And if you're a grid operator, that's a huge thing happening. But what they're finding now that they're up to 2,000 megawatts, half of the 4,000 megawatt, is that this is a daily fluctuation here of wind generation, is they're actually getting 60-second rampings of like 600 megawatt fluctuations up and off the grid in 60-second intervals, which is just a huge event. I mean, it's really causing them some nightmares about reliability on the grid. And one of the issues is that they're finding the way they built these wind farms is that as a gust of wind comes down the gorge, it hits these lines. You're getting these huge fluctuations because they're they're so concentrated. And this is an issue that between solar, particularly on the high voltage side, with a large solar project, where you can find they get a large thundercloud that comes over, they can have a very fast drop off, and that causes some problems too. So one of the big areas they're trying to figure out is how all these different renewable resources are going to work together without making the lights go out, basically. When you talk about clean energy and clean jobs, 2/3 of the jobs that are going to be created are going to be in this area, which is kind of, they call it the SCADA, it's a software area of how all these different resources are going to work together. And there's going to be, I'm trying to remember, just doing this off the top of my head, there was a Rolls-Royce study that said there's going to be, I forgot the number, so I'm not going to say it, but more jobs in the clean energy space than in aerospace worldwide between now and 2020. 2/3 of those jobs are going to be in this area, trying to figure out how it's all going to work together, basically. Smart grid's a big, like I said, is that SCADA area. It's meters on the side of your house that communicate with the utility operator, with your home. Eventually, there's some really great tools coming out in the market in the next couple of years where, from your Google's working on a lot of these, where you can actually go in from your work and fiddle around with your thermostat, your hot water tank, or your air conditioner unit, or wherever it is at your home. Did you leave the heat on when you left? Again, as I call it, my spaghetti graph. This is the complexity that we're facing about trying to make all these different resources work together. I really like this slide, and this is with smart meters and GIS technology what you can do. This is the Salt Lake Valley down in Utah. And what's neat about this, and this is back to the question of, do you build transmission or do you build local self-generation?
Yes.
Right? So this is by substation, the amount of growth in the next 10 years in the Salt Lake Valley. So the height of these represents the exact outlines of distribution lines from a substation in the Salt Lake Valley area. This is Salt Lake City here, this big one here. But when you look at it like this, you can actually, this is a proposed transmission line, that red thing. You can actually ask questions like, there's a subdivision up here on this hill, right? Does it make sense to have to build more transmission up to accommodate that growth, or does it make more sense to go in and say, look, you're going to generate, as you build more homes up there, you're going to generate 30% of your electricity on site, either through solar, solar thermal, fuel cells, whatever that technology is going to be.
Build your house on a hill, solar and wind.
Right.
That'll be part of the planning process.
You look at a spot like this where there's not a huge amount of growth in that same amount in that area. Again, so you can ask the same type of question. Does it make sense to do a huge transmission project to get more energy out here, or do you make them generate it? Is it cheaper to do more self-generation? And when you factor in that transmission cost to deliver power costs is when you get an actually truer sense of what the actual cost of your energy use is.
What about storage? You had a place like that up on the hill, and you have a minimal amount of transmission there, and you build more demand. Is anything being done research-wise or development-wise on storage capability?
Yeah, there's quite a bit being done in a lot of different areas. Everything from you call it there's kind of a molten salt thing for solar. But that's more utility scale. You're not going to see that in your neighborhood. But there's some really neat technology being developed with flywheels, which is an old technology. But the way they're storing it and then letting the flywheel, release that at nighttime, like off the energy built up from a solar system. Pacific Core is doing a lot of stuff with chemical type systems where you generate different chemicals during the day and night, you let them interact with each other and they generate electricity. There's been a lot of talk about making hydrogen out of different renewable resources and using those in fuel cells or even in older reciprocating engines and stuff. It's pretty costly technology still. I think the more they develop it, the cost will come down on it. But I worked with one project where there was an Air Force base in New Zealand. They put a 1 kilowatt fuel cell in that cost about $8,000, and the solar reformer cost $110,000 to make the hydrogen for the fuel cell. So that gives you an idea of the cost differential between the actual cost of the fuel cell versus what it took to make the hydrogen. One of the things about the nuclear plants, those fourth generation reactors, which are very low temperature reactors, but one of the natural byproducts that they have to get offsite immediately is that they actually produce tons of hydrogen off those reactors. That's with China building 30 of them. China's making a big play about trying to develop a hydrogen infrastructure around some of those reactors they're building in China to power vehicles off of and so forth. But
I'd love to see the upside in nuclear.